These two cutscenes are 14 years apart from cinematic series gaming.
You can either tell me what your boss is planning, or you can stay in there.
Soon laptilota. Moguta data mapunki dunko.
You again. If you're still looking for Haas, I haven't seen him.
Actually, I'm here for you. I heard you're the best shot on the planet.
Oh, and you want to be second best. Now is not a good time. The Huts are coming, and I need to get ready.
Sounds like my grandma.
Coming? You mean right now?
Could be any time. I caught one of their scouts, but he's not talking.
Jiba jama grandio sa urda tu tonga.
Who's Erda?
Erdatar.
Erditor. Sorry, very serious. It's a serious thing.
Hut underboss. We used to work together.
Priya uba dopamiki he's nolia chapata.
I just took what I was owed. But now, a bunch of innocents are being dragged into it.
So, take the help. I'm a pretty good shot, you know.
Trust me, Kay. You don't want to mess with Erda. The man fights like a wild massive.
I fought a Rancor. Massives are nothing.
All right. If you're set on it, there's no sense wasting time. Need to get those barricades up, and then we'll see about target practice.
I will say this. I think, that some people don't understand the difference between Ubisoft's studios and engines. This was made by Ubisoft Massive, and with their engine, that was the same engine they used on Avatar. For them, it's a tool set they're familiar with, but I believe it's the same thing. Snowdrop, I want to say. But it's the same engine that they've used, I believe, for the Division games and all those. So it's specialized for that. Weak points, facial animations and cutscenes, 1000%. And I think it's important to understand that there's another engine called Anvil. Yeah, Frostbite is the DICE one. That's the one from EA. Yeah. But there's another engine that Ubisoft uses called Anvil that has had major overhauls done for AC Shadows specifically that we still have not really seen in terms of those improvements. So I think if you're looking at Shadows versus Outlaws is going to be like night and day in terms of production quality. Now you can't change the writing. Well, you can technically change writing with like better writers, but the writing is a separate issue. But when we're looking at this and we are looking at like how bad the lip syncing is and the weird movements and stuff like that, that's something that Shadow should have significantly improved. But when it comes to writing, that remains to be seen. But let's see the other cutscene from 14 years before. Also in a jail. Also cowboy vibes.
Excuse me.
Hey, you got a visitor.
Now, what you want?
My name's John Marston. You wanted to speak to me.
I did?
Apparently so.
Why?
Wow.
I guess because we're both in the business of the law.
You that fella from the train company?
No, I'm from Fort Mercer.
Fort Mercer? You them one of them Williamson boys.
Calm down.
Go on, shoot him, mister. Shoot him.
Come, what, you getting cute with me, boy?
What's going on here?
I got me one of them Williamson boys.
I got me one of them idiots who give marshals a bad name.
Jonah, put your gun down. You must be the man from Blackwater.
Yes, sir. Listen, that dog ain't too bright, but he seems loyal.
Jonah, get out of here for a minute.
Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson, sir. And you? Oh, I done seen enough of your hide around here, friend.
I think there's some school children down the way you can go and frighten.
Oh, hardy fucking har.
What are you doing here, Mr. Marston?
Dude, it's just makes me want to play Red Dead again. I put it on my RG Ally, just like for this trip because it just looks good. Graphics is not a substitute for good writing and cinematography. Well, and it's the thing about Star Wars Outlaws that I don't think Ubisoft really appreciated when they greenlit the project was just that there are specializations. Like the team that makes The Division, it should not surprise anybody. They're not as specialized in like narrative open world games, like making a compelling narrative for a game and having cutscenes that play well and having the performances that play well. Like all of this has to tie together really, really seamlessly. And it takes a certain skill set. It takes a certain specialization that, like, Massive is a very capable studio, but that's not what they are specialized in. That's not what they do. And after this, like, they finished Star Wars Outlaws and they moved right on to the Division 3, what they are, like, really good at, what their specialization is. Shocker, right? And I'm sure the Division 3 will be really impressive because it doesn't really need to focus on intense cinematics or that type of thing to stand out. And I just think that there was this weird, I guess, this shift in the industry where a lot of studios thought that they could just use the same studios that made these other games and just move them into like other genres of games. And it's just not true. Like, you can't have the looter shooter style, live service studio pump out a good single player narrative game, and you can't have the single player studio pump out a good live service game. These studios are different, the specializations are different, and the talent sets are different. It's just, maybe it's executives that just don't understand. They think that, well, you're a game designer, you can make games, so make one that's live service and make one that's single player. Like, they just, or I guess multiplayer live service versus single player, because you could technically have live service single player games, which Valhalla kind of was, but anyway. You can if given enough time with the right directors. Well, but the other piece of it too is that you need the team members. Like, if you're going to go multiplayer live service, that means major reworkings of engines if the engine wasn't built for multiplayer stuff. Like, there was just the stories of how they had to rework the creation engine to be used for Fallout 76. The engine was not built for multiple players. It just wasn't. Like, it was not built in a way where they anticipated that, because it was built for one player character, and then you create like a little bubble around them, and then you have the map more generally that the player navigates through, but you load stuff in the bubble. Other stuff out here you can kind of keep away from the player and unload. You don't need to stress about it. You don't need to do simulation stuff out there. Don't worry about it. Just worry about what's in the bubble. But when they want to do a multiplayer live service game, now they have more players. And the engine doesn't know how to handle that. There was a bunch of code in the engine that were specifically referred to like player. So it's like, if the engine needs to check for like objectives, for example, you take on a quest and the quest says, go here. And when you're looking at the minimap or the compass, it says player dot position at these coordinates. And then that puts it on the map. Well, the engine was not built for multiple players. It doesn't have player 1, player 2, player 3, or player underscore ID, like with their specific player character ID. They don't have any of that stuff written into the code. So they had to go in and manually rewrite all of that code because the engine just wasn't built to ever consider another player. So there were things that wouldn't work. Everybody would have the exact same objectives pop up if one player took on a quest line. Like, they had to rewrite everything. So it's not as simple, even just from the engine side, to just take this and make a live service game. And the only way you get that is if executives that don't know what they're doing are greenlighting projects. And the other piece of it beyond just the technical side is the talent set is different. Players, or rather designers that are really good at making games for online, for players to play for years to come, with grinding out loot or with seasonal updates and stuff, that is a different talent set than a game that single player gamers will like. So if you want to shift your single player studio into a live service studio, a multiplayer live service studio, you're probably going to lose some of those single player artists and designers who don't want to make a multiplayer game, which is what happened at Arcane Austin with Redfall. They all left. And then, they hire more people for the live service side of it. But then they're like, oh, that didn't work out too well. So let's go and try to make a single player game again. But all those original guys left, so now you're having live service designers and developers work on a single player game, and that also doesn't go too well. So it just spins and spins and, flushes down the toilet eventually.